At the edge of the world. The wind does not merely blow, it reigns supreme. It is 5 in the morning on the Patagonian Steppe, and temperatures are plummeting. For this solitary creature, the ferocious gale is its greatest adversary, yet also its only veil of camouflage. It has 14 hours before daylight fades entirely to find an opening among the vigilant sentinels of the steppe. If it fails by nightfall, this freezing winter night will swallow it whole. The race for survival begins. Where land meets southern skies lies a realm of staggering beauty. Small inhabitants like the tarantula navigate freezing stones before sunrise. Nocturnal hunters, like Jeffrey's cat, retreat into dense grass at dawn. The true monarch of this wind-scoured kingdom stirs in rocky crevices. A majestic Puma concolor, the undisputed apex predator, steps into chill. She assesses her vast territory, reading frigid air currents for life. Her fluid movements silently navigate the abrasive, wind-battered flora. Miles away, dwarfed by the environment, guanacos graze peacefully. These resilient camelids are Patagonia's lifeblood, constantly being watched. Relying on natural camouflage, she lowers her profile against freezing earth. As the sun pierces clouds, the morning chorus begins against gales. Utilizing natural trenches, the predator moves unseen across open plains. Pausing mid-stride, she gathering vital olfactory intelligence from wind. Sharing this pasture is Darwin's rhea, navigating plains with prehistoric grace. The sheer scale of these scrublands requires daily miles of travel. As morning mist burns away, the beautiful Argentine wilderness is revealed. A South American gray fox halts, relying on acute hearing for prey. Camouflaged flawlessly against muted earth tones, the puma haunts scrublands. Water is precious here. She utilizes temporary pools trapped in rock. The steppe's diverse inhabitants share this punishing habitat in delicate balance. Unexpected color bursts as a Chilean flamingo feeds in saline lakes. The predator skirts mineral-rich waters, leaving tracks in fragile salt crusts. Her absolute focus spots movement across miles of uninterrupted barren terrain. Flightless but fast, Darwin's rhea easily outpaces threats on unforgiving steppes. Reaching a vantage point, the puma rests against freezing morning gales. Boasting a massive wingspan, the Andean condor utilizes brutal winds flying. From thousands of feet above, the colossal scavenger surveys arid expanses. The apex predator watches scavengers, who often signal other hunters' presence. Guanacos remain unfazed by immense birds, saving vigilance for terrestrial threats. With dawn concluding, the solitary puma resumes her monumental wilderness march. By 8, the extreme night chill breaks, bringing a vitality surge. A fiercely territorial burrowing owl guards its home, watching aerial threats. Dense tuft grasses provide perfect cover, entirely hiding the hunting cat. Maintaining dominance over her enormous range requires constant, deliberate scent marking. Oblivious to the deadly stalking predator, a rhea continues foraging peacefully. The raw Patagonian steppe is dominated by extreme winds and granite. Protected by armor, the hairy armadillo powerfully excavates earth for meals. The culpeo, South America's second-largest canid, confidently patrols its rugged territory. Patience lets the puma observe the steppe's circadian rhythm completely unseen. Guanacos ignore the passing fox, knowing it poses no threat to them. Dominating lower airspace, the buzzard eagle claims vertical vantage points on trees. Perfectly disguised against granite, the venomous Patagonian lancehead ambushes passing rodents. The rugged terrain demands focus. One misstep on razor-sharp shale is fatal. Though camouflaged, the puma's movements occasionally trigger the herd's alarm networks. On level ground, the apex predator moves toward dense scrublands efficiently. Microscopically, a native centipede navigates the colossal terrain of fallen branches. The opportunistic crested caracara patrols aggressively, utilizing sharp intellect for meals. Navigating brutal flora requires balancing immense physical strength and calculated precision. Stepping into the open once more, she shares this expanse with birds. With late morning concluding, the exhausted predator claims a sheltered hollow. The subterranean tuco-tuco briefly emerges, assessing the changing, warming conditions. Seeking vertical wood, the Magellanic woodpecker excavates insects inside dead trunks. Conserving energy, the apex predator rests deeply as the morning relentlessly warms. Unaware of sleeping danger, the guanaco grazes heavily, building fat reserves. The miniature poodoo relies on dense cover and absolute stillness to hide. With predators watching, the Patagonian mara crosses open areas with explosive sprints. Even in rest, the puma remains attuned to the windy steppe sounds. Giant flightless rheas dominate daytime foraging, utilizing immense height spotting threats. Highly active during the day, the burrowing owl fiercely hunts for insects. For extreme weather survival, guanaco herds align themselves, blocking the wind. By midday, the vast Patagonian steppe becomes a crucible of heat thermals. Escaping oppressive temperatures, the hairy armadillo forcefully excavates temporary subterranean refuges. Her thick nightcoat becomes a midday liability, forcing panting for cooling. As midday arrives, all active movement ceases. Predator and prey alike surrender. Retreating to cool earth, the burrowing owl waits out the temperature spike. Even tough avian scavengers must seek sparse shade, surviving brutal midday heat. Deep within granite crevices, cooler temperatures provide sanctuary for the sleeping predator. Without trees, guanacos bunch tightly together to block the blinding sun. Overwhelming midday conditions enforce a temporary truce. Survival takes precedence over hunting. Ectothermic reptiles retreat into cool crevices before the surface bakes them alive. Dense tufted grasses act as a true ecosystem, providing crucial thermal insulation. Brief waking moments are spent maintaining her coat for the freezing night. Riding immense thermal updrafts, the Andean condor surveys the vast baking earth. Every creature is strictly bound by the brutal physics of the steppe. Sealing its burrow, the tuco-tuco creates a climate-controlled bunker beneath blistering surfaces. At the mineral lakes, guanaco herds resemble lifeless statues, subdued by heat. Vibrant flamingos halt feeding, burying heads, shielding eyes from wind-borne dust. Maximizing contact with cooler earth, the puma stretches completely to shed heat. Miles of open terrain separate steppe giants, locked in the same struggle. Finding a thorny thicket's center, the Patagonian mockingbird escapes brutal, howling gales. The culpeo utilizes ancient geological cracks, finding deep shade on open plains. Even exhausted, a true apex predator maintains instinctual awareness of harsh surroundings. It is a sheer endurance test, waiting for relief from baking skies. Herbivores endure open heat, while smaller predators claim rare, cooler geological formations. Microscopically, moisture preservation forces the tarantula to remain entirely and completely dormant. As afternoon approaches, a subtle wind shift hints at a coming cooling. The apex predator stirs, stretching heavily, priming immense muscles for evening hunting. Sensing the thermal shift, the buzzard eagle prepares aggressively, resuming its aerial patrol. Midday silence breaks as terrestrial giants violently shake off insulating dust layers. A powerful yawn signals the deadly hunter is awake and fully re-energized. As afternoon advances, subtle warmth bleeds into skies, signaling rapid earth cooling. Shaking off heavy dust, the rejuvenated Puma focuses on demanding hours ahead. Before chasing, she must rehydrate at one of the steppe's rare springs. As she begins patrolling, Guanaco herd's sensitive alert networks are instantly reactivated. The diminutive Pudu senses cooler temperatures, risking emergence to find fresh vegetation. Requiring an elevated view, the agile feline scales a wind-smoothed granite monolith. From here, she maps the Guanaco herd's movements against the howling wind. The Guanaco herds resume relentless foraging, completely unaware they are being tracked. The Patagonian steppe allows a highly tense balance between predator and prey. With heat breaking, smaller rodents gather food quickly before nocturnal hunters emerge. Having mapped the terrain, the apex predator carefully descends to begin stalking. As intense heat breaks, elusive felines cautiously stir from their deep slumber. Back on ground, the Puma utilizes sprawling brush to flawlessly disappear. Guanaco herds constantly migrate across arid scrublands to find adequate forage. Sensing lethal heat dissipating, the Patagonian lancehead slowly emerges to hunt now. Transforming into a ghost, the Puma utilizes low scrub masking her approach. The Patagonian Mara must eat quickly while constantly monitoring for immense threats. Utilizing ancient, dry, prehistoric river trenches, the Puma circumvents the herd's sight. As shadows stretch, the Culpeo emerges from refuge to hunt small rodents. Flying low, the Caracara relies on surprise to flush hidden microfauna. The towering granite spires of Argentina cast immense cooling shadows across plains. A sudden wind shift forces the Puma to freeze, avoiding visual detection. Every footfall is calculated. A snapped twig could trigger a massive stampede. Totally oblivious to the apex predator, the Guanaco herd relaxes in shadows. Taking advantage of dropping temperatures, the burrowing owl capitalizes on increased insects. Closing the final yards requires the Puma dragging her massive frame flush. Herd survival depends on sharp eyesight and vigilance of dominant males guarding. Away from scrubland tension, the Chilean flamingo resumes peaceful foraging in lakes. Operating downwind, she perfectly bypasses the herd's incredibly sensitive olfactory defenses. Within striking distance, the Puma locks sights on a specific, vulnerable target. As dusk settles, rapidly fading light shifts the advantage to nocturnal predators. Despite roaring gales, the Guanaco's incredible hearing detects microscopic brush anomalies instantly. Diurnal birds like Magellanic woodpeckers quickly secure roosts before lethal darkness arrives. Unseen tension bleeds into the environment. Wildlife senses impending violence on wind. The alarm is raised. The herd forms a tight defensive cluster, panicking. As daylight perishes completely, freezing Patagonian gales take absolute control of darkness. Every muscle fiber is flooded with oxygen, ready to execute explosive acceleration. Hearing panicked herbivore alarms, the tiny Pudu instantly abandons its meal silently. Realizing danger is imminent, the herd absolutely cannot pinpoint the predator's location. Aware of impending chaos, the heavily armored armadillo seals itself safely beneath. With terrifying acceleration, the Puma breaks cover and aggressively assaults the herd. Total chaos ensues as the herd scatters wildly, utilizing frantic evasion tactics. The massive stampede's sheer scale forces all surrounding wildlife fleeing from panic. Ignoring the chaotic scattering, the apex predator isolates a victim and commits. Traction is everything. Her massive paws propel her with unmatched kinetic energy. On unforgiving plains, survival is a brutal calculation of speed and stamina. To break deadly momentum, the herbivore executes violent, unpredictable changes in direction. Immense scavengers act as grim spectators, fully anticipating the inevitable, violent outcome. The puma's heavy tail brilliantly counterbalances, perfectly matching the prey's desperate evasions. The gap closes, a brutal biomechanical display honed by millions of years. The high-speed pursuit reaches a dramatic twilight climax, illuminating the beautiful steppe. Committing entirely, the heavy feline launches herself to unbalance the frantic prey. The high-speed pursuit concludes in a terrifying, chaotic tumble of flying debris. From afar, the remaining herd watches the chaotic dust cloud slowly settle. Relying on unmatched raw power, the apex predator decisively concludes the hunt. Testing endurance limits, she desperately catches her breath against the freezing gales. With the kill secured, she remains vigilant against the steppe's opportunistic scavengers. Drawn by the aftermath, the gray fox patiently waits to claim scraps. As she claims sustenance, the Patagonian steppe prepares for another freezing night. Survival here is brutal and unrelenting, a timeless cycle beneath towering peaks. As darkness reclaims the steppe, her survival is guaranteed for one more night. But while the ghost cat of Patagonia finally rests, 5,000 miles to the north, an entirely different apex predator is just waking up. To witness the dawn of the jaguar, click here and let the journey continue.